Hey everybody, it's GoblinX and welcome back to some more Magic Arena. Today we have an Ikoria Lair of Behemoths quick draft, a little bit of a blast from the past here. This format did come out a little over a year ago now, and this was a pretty interesting format, definitely a pretty contentious one as it started to get completely overwhelmed and overtaken by red-white cycling decks by the end of this. So a couple big things to note in this format if you're going into it completely fresh is that the best deck to be in by far are the red-white cycling decks, and that is, if you're lucky, you'll be able to get those cards. I'm pretty sure in the quick drafts, the bots will be taking them pretty highly because they don't want everybody to end up in the best archetype by far. The key cards for that deck are Zenith Flare, which is an uncommon for 4 mana that does damage to any target equal to the number of cycling cards in your graveyard, and you gain that much life. Absolutely absurd card with the amount of 1 generic mana cyclers in the format. Cards like Imposing Vantis are here, very high picks in this format for that reason. They are absolutely exceptional in those cycling decks, and they're still super fine in any other deck because of the fact that you can cycle them so cheap for just a generic mana. You can even play off-color cycling cards in your deck if you're in red-white cycling, and even if you're in just like green blue or green black, if you want to run a 39 card deck and just run the best cards you have, you can throw an Imposing Vantisar, because then anytime you draw it, you just spend 1 mana to cycle it away and draw your next card. You're basically running a deck with fewer cards. It's more honed in on exactly your best cards and what you're trying to do. So these 1 generic mana cycling cards, maybe a little bit of too pushed for limited in like a regular draft format, because these ended up being incredibly high picks to where cards like Vantisar that don't look that good just because of the fact that they cycle for 1 mana are quite often just first picks. But then obviously all of the red-white cycling payoffs like the Zenith Flare that I mentioned, and then cards like Prickly Marmoset are a common 3 mana 2/3 first striker, gets +2/+0 every time you cycle a card. That card's almost impossible to block because it's so easy to cycle something and make it 4 power first strike, which can beat almost any creature. And if you don't block it, your opponent's going to be doing a ton of damage to you, so that card's super hard to beat. As well as, of course, Snare Tactician, a common in white. That's a 3 mana creature whenever you cycle something. Tap down an opposing threat. So those are the 3 really big cards to keep a lookout for. If you can get any number of those, you can end up in the strongest mechanic in the format by far, which is red-white cycling. But even if you don't see those, it is good to take the 1 generic mana cyclers like Imposing Vantisar here pretty highly. So I am going to take a look at our uncommons and rares here. Nothing in our commons looks like something that you would take over most 1 generic mana cyclers. But we can check out the uncommons and commons here and see if there's anything pretty solid. We have a Savai Crystal. This card's interesting. This format didn't end up being as multicolored as it looked like it was going to be at first. Of course, you do have the crystals in the format, and you have these non-basic lands like Swiftwater Cliffs here, the tapped lands that gain life when they come into play. So there are a lot of ways to get multiple colors of mana. So you can definitely play 3-color decks if you really want to, and there's also several rares in 3 colors, but I felt like I very rarely ended up in actual 3-color decks or playing against 3-color decks in this format, because it felt like the decks were relatively aggressive, pretty owned in on their unique strategies, so you didn't have a ton of time to dirtle around with your mana base. So not a huge fan of actually the 3-color cards like Death's Oasis or the 3-color crystals like the Savai Crystal. But obviously, if you're in like red-white cycling, this card's super solid. It taps for a red or a white and cycles for 2. But without knowing what we're in, I don't think the crystal's that exciting. Insatiable Hemophage is fun. If you end up in the Mutate deck, having a bunch of different cards that mutate can stack up together, which is a really fun mechanic from the format. Obviously just didn't end up quite on par with the cycling shenanigans, but still definitely a good place to end up in if you get enough of the Mutate cards. So that is definitely a pick we can make here, and same with Sanctuary Lockdown. This card's going to be solid in like a white-black humans deck. That is the best kind of archetype for an aggressive humans tribal deck. So I think that really Sanctuary Lockdown, Insatiable Hemophage, or Imposing Vantasar would be the first picks I would choose from here. Death's Oasis does feel like just too slow and dirtly of a card for the format, being a difficult mana cost to play, and not doing anything immediately when you play it. You have to play it, and then you start getting a little bit of value whenever your creatures are dying. Definitely seems like a very slow card there, but cool looking card nonetheless. I'm just going to go with the boring first pick here and go with an Imposing Vantasar. It's just really hard to end up in a deck that can't just use a one colorless discard this card to draw a card and just make your deck a little more narrow, a little more focused in that way. Now we have Fire Prophecy is a great removal spell in red. It's an instant speed removal spell, does 3 damage to any target, and you get to draw a card when you play this. You have to put a card from your hand on the bottom of your library to do so, but that's usually going to be solid when you need a land. You can put a non-land on bottom. When you need a non-land, put a land on bottom, stuff like that, so that seems great. Evolving Wilds is also solid because it is going to be good mana fixing in any color scheme we end up in. Definitely would take it over something like the Scoured Barrens because that is for only a specific color scheme, and we don't know what we're in quite yet. There's also Rumbling Rockslide, another great removal spell here. This one a little more expensive and doesn't draw you the card, but it can end up doing more damage. Also sorcery speed as well. I think there are multiple things going for Fire Prophecy that make it a little bit of a higher pick than Rumbling Rockslide, but this is a great removal spell as well. Just Fire Prophecy is enough cheaper, plus instant speed, plus can draw a card, that I think I will take Fire Prophecy over the Rumbling Rockslide. But that's a fine card. Easy Prey seems like okay removal because it does cycle, so you can get rid of it if your opponent doesn't have anything that small, but it's not going to hit a ton of relevant targets. We do have Wingspan Mentor, 3 mana for a 1/3, put a counter on a non-human and give it flying. Another mechanic of the format is the kind of human plus non-human decks. There are a little bit of tribal stuff going on in this format, all based around humans in some way or the other. The tribal strategies in the format are basically drafting a humans deck, drafting a non-humans deck, or drafting a human plus non-human deck. Cards like Wingspan Mentor, of course, will be cards that reward you for drafting a human/non-human deck, because Wingspan Mentor is a human that gives your non-humans a buff, and then cards like Of One Mind are a lot better when you have humans and non-humans out. So those kind of reward that kind of strategy. The mutate mechanic, you can only mutate onto non-human creatures, so that's the kind of strategy that rewards drafting all non-humans. And then, of course, as we saw in the last pack, there was that Sanctuary Lockdown in white, giving all of your humans +1/+1. So interesting format in terms of the tribal synergies as well. There are just a lot of cool things going on in the format, but I'm just going to take the nice, cheap, efficient removal spell. It does also put us into red-white if we get really lucky and get those cycling cards, but if we don't, I am open to going really anything here at this point. We are early enough in the draft to scoop up any solid bombs in any color that get passed to us here. So now we do have a Titan's Nest. This is probably going to be similar to the first rare that we had, where it's going to be just too slow to do anything. Let's see. Oh yeah, way too slow for limited here. We do mill ourselves every turn, so we are fueling our graveyard with that, and then we can use the cards in our graveyard to get colorless mana. But yeah, that's after we've already spent 4 mana on this thing, so it doesn't really ramp us up until very late in the game anyway. I do like the Evolving Wilds here, just good mana fixing for whatever we end up in. The Wingspan Mentor can be a pretty good threat, giving anything flying and slowly making it bigger. That is an option here. Weaponize the Monsters can be solid as well. There's a little bit of a red-black sacrifice deck in this format, as there is in most formats. You can get some human tokens in this format, not too difficultly, and you can use those to sacrifice to the Weaponize. There's also a little bit of other token production, and I think 1, maybe 2 ways to steal opposing creatures, and then sacrifice those. So that's pretty fine there. Helica Glider always seemed okay because it was whatever you wanted it to be at the time, a 2/2 flyer or a first striker if you're on the defensive. Bunch of pretty average stuff here. I think I will go with the Evolving Wild since it does just leave us the most open. We're going to stay very open to start off this draft. And Farfinder is another card that's great for that. It is completely colorless, all generic mana, so we can play it in any deck, and it grabs us a basic land of whatever type we need. This is also a fox, so it's not a human, so we can mutate onto this card if we get any of those kinds of effects. So I do like Farfinder, and I'm pretty cool with taking that pretty highly here. We are taking it over like a Momentum Rumbler, which can be a pretty scary card once it starts attacking. Obviously, once it gets that momentum, gets the first strike, then it gets double strike the more it attacks, so that can be pretty scary for your opponent. I'm just going to roll with the Farfinder here, and we are really open to anything at this point still. Spell Eater Wolverine, actually pretty scary card in the cycling decks, or any deck with a lot of instants and sorceries. The cycling deck is where it's at its best, because you can cycle them away so quickly for just that 1 mana, and you fuel your grave quickly enough that this is attacking with double strike on like turn 4 or 5, which is where it's really at its best. So that seems good. Other than that, I do like the Wingfold Terran. It's kind of a slow card, but it's just such a big blocker. It can really annoy people. It's also pretty good if you have like mutate stuff, because you can make it just a big old hexproof and then mutate something else onto it. Mystic Subdual is a fine removal spell. I'm just going to take a Spell Eater Wolverine here. Goes with what we've got right now. We definitely have 1 red instant here, and it's pretty cheap. We've got the 1 cycling card so far, the Imposing Vantasaur, and that'll work well with the Wolverine as well. I think I'm cool to take another Farfinder here. There's also Forbidden Friendship, which is okay in the sacrifice decks if we had cards like that weaponize the monsters there. Sorry for the pause there. I was just thinking. This also does work with Mutate, because you can mutate onto that dinosaur token. I'm just going to take a second Farfinder, though. Now we have Adaptive Shimmerer. Ideally, this is the kind of card you flash in during your opponent's turn, and then you mutate onto it on your turn, and whatever you've mutated onto it gets to keep all the +1/+1 counters. That's the thought behind this card, but this card, I've like never seen this card be good, but I also didn't play this format a whole ton, because by the time I started playing it, it was all just red-white cycling, so it definitely gets old really quick. Alert Heatbonder seems super fine here. 3 mana for a 2/4 Vigilance, like, that's the worst it can do, and at best, if you have more vigilant creatures, you can gain a bunch of life in your end step. But yeah, by itself, a 3 mana 2/4 Vigilance that gains you 1 life every turn seems fine to me, and we can definitely play that out of our white part of this deck if we go red-white here. Take a Windscarred Crag for the mana fixing for red-whites. There's also Shredded Sails, which is good for the cycling deck, but not so sure we're actually going to be doing the cycling thing. We might just end up in red and white without really doing much cycling. Now, Sanctuary Lockdown has gone pretty late here. We could try to do some sort of humans thing. It's that or a Blister Spit Gremlin, Swiftwater Cliffs. Not a super great pack here. Just take a Sanctuary Lockdown. And Scoured Baron seems fine to me. White-black, of course, being the best color scheme for a humans deck, because it gives you access to the cards like Night Squad Commando that spit out a human token when you play them. So that does curve out really well with Sanctuary Lockdown. I mean, they don't curve well together because they're both 3-drops, but they work well together in the same sort of deck. Would I rather just take the Night Squad Commando over the duel? Actually, probably would, because I already have Evolving Wilds, at least, if I do end up in white-black. And I'm not going to end up in white-black if I don't have the white-black humans thing going on, so let's start getting some of the humans for that, if that ends up being a thing. Pyroceratops, if I recall correctly, this was actually kind of good, kind of nice. Maybe I'm misremembering here, but I think if you have a lot of cheap stuff like Fire Prophecy, this can go places. It's definitely a bit slow for the format, but it can get quite large. Sleeper Dart. It's unexciting, but it can go into any deck because of the generic mana, so 2 mana, draw a card, slow something down for a second. Replaces itself with that card draw. I think these are the 2 picks I'd be interested in, not really looking for just a 4/2 or a Light of Hope. Yeah, I'll take a Pyroceratops there. We have a Dark Bargain here for just like a fine draw spell out of black. Big old turtle to block things in blue. Or the blue-black flash kind of payoff card at uncommon here. Seems like somewhere we're pretty unlikely to be with just red and white cards right now, so I'll take a Dark Bargain in case we end up in black-white. And now I'll take a Sleeper Dart. And Rugged Highlands, I guess. I'm just not going to play a Light of Hope. All of the effects on it are pretty insignificant, even though it does give you the option of all of them. Offspring's Revenge, so I might be happy to have that Windscarred Crag and Evolving Wilds here, because I think that this card was actually kind of sweet, albeit definitely a bit slow. So this is 5 mana. At the beginning of combat on your turn, exile a red, white, or black creature from your grave, create a copy of it, except it's a 1/1, and it gains haste until end of turn. So definitely with good enter the battlefield effects, good leaves the battlefield effects, this can be solid. I definitely want to draft around it a bit, but this can do some pretty big stuff. I guess not technically because they're all just 1/1 still, but if you have good ways to use those 1/1s or just the effects that they get, this can be super solid. I think I like Offspring's Revenge here. There's not much else that we're taking that's great. There's like Fight is one, which could be solid here. We're probably going to have a lot of humans and non-humans. Or Bushmeat Poacher. This card is going to work pretty well with the Offspring's Revenge. If we start going down that path, we can be red, black, and white sacrifice. Now we have a Whirlwind of Thought. This was another one that was actually, this might have been, I'm pretty sure this was like sweeter than Offspring's Revenge in the right deck. 4 mana, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you draw a card. So this card just allows you to draft just a deck with just nothing but non-creature cards, and just draft a complete control deck, tons of removal and stuff, and just draw a card every time you're controlling things. It's not a card we're going to play in our deck, but it's definitely a solid card. I like taking another Imposing Vantasaur here, because just that 1 mana cycling is so good. But at this point, we're pretty sure that we're not playing cycling, because we just don't have anything that pays off the cycling. So I'm actually pretty interested in Necropanther or Huntmaster Liger here, both of these being good cards for an aggressive deck. And with Offspring's Revenge, ideally this would be at the top end of an aggressive curve. So like Necropanther here, we can mutate this for 4. When it mutates, brings something from our grave back. Or Huntmaster Liger mutates for 3. When it mutates, all our creatures get +1/+1 until end of turn. I think both of those are pretty great. Although I'm going to go with the Necropanther here. I think it's a little cooler. Now we have another Imposing Vantasaur. Heartless Axe. This seems like a great removal spell. Probably going to be the pick here. 2 mana, destroy a creature with no counters on it, or remove up to 3 counters from a creature. Yeah, I'm going to roll with this here. We did just take a Mutate card, so we could also take Hemophage and stack those Mutate effects on each other, but I like that just cheap, super efficient removal. Now we've got Bastion of Remembrance, which does work well with what red, black, and white are doing. A little bit of human tribal, a little bit of sacrifice tribal. Card's definitely solid. There's also that Weaponize the Monsters, though, for the sacrifice stuff. The Pacifism for the cheap, efficient removal spell again. I'll go with the Pacifism. I hope I wheel one of these, so we have like a pretty exciting card to try to build the deck around. But I think there's just no chance that the Pacifism wheels. Now that we've taken Pacifism, Heartless Act, and Fire Prophecy, I think we're okay to pass up on the Mutual Destruction. But this card is good if you have a ton of creature tokens to sacrifice to it. We don't have a ton right now. We're just leaning towards that direction. So in the future, we're going to be looking to pick up some of those, hopefully. Blitzleech is a lot of mana, but it can be a big blowout. 6 mana for a 5/2 flash, give a creature -2/-2 till end of turn, and remove all the counters from it. There are a decent amount of counters in this format. There's also that Easy Prey for the other cheap removal spell that we can cycle when it's not doing well. Yeah, I like Vantasar, Mutual Destruction, Easy Prey, and Blitzleech here. I'll go with the Blitzleech. Now we have a Bushmeat Poacher. Pretty happy to take that, I think. We are going to definitely start looking for a bunch of stuff to sacrifice. Sanctuary Lockdown now. Maybe we try to do white-black humans at the core of this deck, and then a little bit of a red splash for Offspring's Revenge. And now we have Ruinous Ultimatum. Destroy all non-land permanents your opponents control. Well, this is a powerful card, but it's not going to go super well in an aggressive deck, so we have to kind of reconsider what we're doing here and get more defensive. I guess a lot of our cards are defensive. I mean, Heatbonder's a 3-mana 2/4, Poacher's a 4-mana 2/4. We have cheap removal. We got the big old Blitzleech. I think we could go for it with the Ruinous Ultimatum. That's just going to be a massive blowout if we ever get to resolve that. It's just going to be a little difficult to do so, being 7 mana and all specific colors of mana. But now we're actually definitely looking for the red, white, black crystal that we passed up on in the first pack. So now that I know where our deck's kind of going here, I'm actually cool just taking as much removal as possible, because now we're just trying to slow things down and get a long, grindy game, do a massive one-sided board wipe later to close things out, hopefully. So I like Bushmeat Poacher because it has high toughness, gains us life, and draws us cards. I like Divine Arrow for being a removal spell, and I like Blade Banish for being a removal spell. Don't love the combat trick here, or the aggressive creature, the Perimeter Sergeant. So Poacher, Divine Arrow, and Blade Banish all seem like solid choices. I'm going to go with the Poacher. Now we have a Vantasar. I think I'll happily take that. Just a big old 3/6 in the late game. Liger is good in aggressive decks, but now I'm not looking to do that. Garrison Cat actually would be a fine little blocker in the early game, because it does replace itself when it dies, so it blocks twice. But I'll go with the Vantasar here. Frenzied Raptor, Perimeter Sergeant, or Unlikely Aid. We have 2 Sanctuary Lockdowns that care about humans. Don't think we're going to end up doing that, but just in case, I'll take the human over the dinosaur. They're pretty comparable in power level. But the Perimeter Sergeant has some human tribal going for it as well. Windscarred Crag, that is a great wheel. We are going to love the mana fixing in this 3-color deck. We got a 1/4 Vigilant Cat or a 1/5 Pangolin for 3. Or a Tranquil Cove. I'll just take the cat. I mean, 4 toughness is a lot for only 2 mana. So that could be a thing. We are trying to be defensive here. What do we have now? Nothing much in the rares and uncommons. I found most of the mentors, if you're not getting a lot out of just getting that counter on immediately, they're not great, because the secondary effect on them, putting +1/+1 counters on the creatures, is very, very slow. Obviously, in the ideal game, this will be incredible, but most games, it's just going to be a 3-mana 3/2. Not much better. I do like Cloud Piercer a lot. 5 mana for a 5/4 reach, or you mutate it for 4, and whenever you do mutate it, you get to discard a card, draw a card. I think I'll go with a Cloud Piercer. Now we have a Checkpoint Officer. I think this is actually probably pretty sweet in this deck. 2 mana for a 1/2, and we can spend 2 mana and tap it to tap a creature. So it can slow our opponent down, try to keep things under control. It's also a human for any of our human tribal synergies if we are really going for that. There is a Spell Eater Wolverine as well, though, if we want to go aggressive, and a Drannith Stinger. Great 1-mana cycler that also damages our opponent when we're cycling. We did see some Checkpoint Officers pretty late in the last pack, so it's possible we can wheel this here. Hopefully, whatever bots are playing white just take like a Patasia Tiger or something. Yeah, I'm actually going to go with Drannith Stinger. This card is, well, it's not a Prickly Marmoset, and it's not a Snare Caster. It's still a fine little cycler and a fine little payoff for that kind of strategy. And we've got a bit of cycling in here, so that would be fine. We have Fire Prophecy and Flame Spill. Flame Spill's probably better. It's only 1 more mana, and it is 1 more damage and potentially damages our opponent a little bit. So pretty comparable. 1 more damage is going to kill a decent amount more things, but Fire Prophecy does draw us a card. I definitely like both of the removal here, being more controlling, wanting a ton of removal in here. I'll go with the Flame Spill. Now we've got another Drannith Stinger, or a Prickly Marmoset, or a Drannith Healer. Wow. Prickly Marmoset is probably the most important in terms of payoffs for cycling, but we kind of stopped doing the cycling thing because we just weren't seeing the payoffs for it. So we have 1 Drannith Stinger. I'm just going to count up how many cycling cards we have. 1. Not a lot, unfortunately. 2, 3. Yeah, we only have 3 cyclers in the deck, so I don't think Prickly Marmoset's actually going to be that insane. So I'd prefer just getting another card that pays us off for cycling and gives us another cycler in the deck. So I'll take the Drannith Stinger here. Take a Drannith Healer here, or Savai Crystal, helping that mana a lot. These are both fantastic. I think I'm going to have to go with the Savai Crystal because we do have that Ruinous Ultimatum at 7 mana. That'll help hit that a lot. And I don't love any of these cards, really. I guess Springjaw Trap is technically more removal. 4 mana to do 3 damage to any target. We do have to spend 1 mana to play this on an earlier turn, though, so 5 mana total. Definitely a bit expensive, but maybe a Serrated Scorpion's like okay here. Just a little chump blocker gains us a little bit of life. Nothing exciting out of that pack. I'll go with a Springjaw Trap for sure. Another Farfinder, a Cloud Piercer, a Bushmeat Poacher, a Go for Blood. Definitely some options. We have double Farfinder already, which is good. Like, that's definitely great in this deck because we did end up 3 colors and with difficult costs like on Ruinous Ultimatum. How many creatures do we have right now? We have 17 creatures. So we're doing good on our creature count, even with a card like Offspring's Revenge that wants a ton of creatures in our grave. We're doing solid there. Yeah, I like all of these a lot. I don't think we ended up with a ton of ways to make creature tokens. We actually ended up with almost none of them, right? So Bushmeat Poacher is probably not even great. We have 1 Night Squad Commando. Yeah, we have 1 Night Squad Commando, and then we already have 2 Bushmeat Poachers, so I'm not going to look for another one. Because we've got our Night Squad Commando, and we have Offspring's Revenge, and those are really just our ways to spit out 1/1s to sacrifice. That's it. Yeah, I don't think I'm looking for another Poacher, so we'll go with a Cloud Piercer or a Go for Blood here. Again, because we have double Farfinder, double Poacher. I think I'll go with another Cloud Piercer. And I like Divine Arrow, but I also like Maned Serval, because now that we have double Cloud Piercer, we have some pretty great cards to mutate with. So we want to make sure we have enough creatures to mutate onto, and I know we have a decent amount of humans, which is a nombo with the mutate cards. You cannot mutate onto a human. We have 7 of them, so we have 11 non-humans in this deck. That's probably enough. I mean, casting Cloud Piercer for 5 mana instead of mutating it for 4 is not that much worse. Yeah, I'll take a Divine Arrow. Well, maybe a Blade Banish even, because we actually have more cheap removal than we have expensive removal. We have Fire Prophecy and Flame Spill that can only kill small things. Pacifism can pretty much kill anything. Springjaw Trap can only kill small things. Yeah, let's get something that can definitely kill like a really big threat here. And grab a Blade Banish. Now, I like the Helica Glider. Just get flying or first strike, whatever we need. Definitely better than the other cards. We're not going to play any combat tricks in this deck. All of our non-creature slots are going to be removal, mana rocks, and our big bomb rares. We did not wheel that human that taps things down, unfortunately. We have a Spell Eater Wolverine or Patasia Tiger. For the Spell Eater Wolverine, we do have 7 instants, 1 sorcery. We've got a few cycling cards. It's 8 towards that. I think I'm going to go with the Spell Eater over the Patasia Tiger here. Although Patasia Tiger is also a good card. Tentative Connection. So we could steal an opponent's creature and then sacrifice it to our Bushmeat Poachers if we're lucky. Alternatively, we can just have a dead weight and just 1 mana -2/-2 to something. I'll just take a dead weight. Take a Perimeter Sergeant. Unlikely Aid. Probably cutting a lot of these cards. Alright, so definitely spent a little bit more time in the drafting portion than normal today. Definitely having to rack my brain and my memory on this format a lot. And I don't even think we ended up in a place that I'm too familiar with in this format. Did not draft it a ton and definitely never ended up in red, white, black control. I guess it would be Savai control in this format. Well, we'll see how well it does. We definitely have the big bombs for it and the removal for it, so it's going to be a difficult deck to build because we are in 3 colors. We've got good mana fixing, though. We have 2 Windscar Crags, 1 Evolving Wilds, 2 Farfinders, a Savai Crystal. Yeah, we're doing pretty great on mana fixing, so I don't think we got enough humans to do the Sanctuary Lockdown thing. We ended up with a lot of just non-humans as our best creatures, so definitely cutting those. I don't love Sleeper Dart, but it does draw a card, so it replaces itself when we play it, and it slows down our opponent a tiny bit. So it's not like it just draws us a card. I am going to cut all of these auras and combat tricks. That's just not what we're doing at all here. Alright. I could see leaving in the Sleeper Dart for now. What do we have in terms of creatures? I think I leave all the 2-drops in because we only have 3 of them. Definitely want to cut some of the 3 mana creatures. We've got a ton of those. I kind of like cutting the Perimeter Sergeants. Again, we're cutting down on the human theme for sure. And these are kind of a human tribal cards and aggressive cards, neither of which combo particularly well with our deck. So I'll cut those out. The Alert Heedbonder is going to be kind of difficult to cast for us because it is 2 white and 1, but I do like the look of it in this deck, having high toughness at 3 mana to block things for a while and gaining us some life. We do have other vigilant creatures as well, so it's possible it gains us more than 1 life each turn, thanks to having 2 Farfinders and a main Serval as well, with vigilance to combo with its effect. So I'm going to leave it in, even though it is pretty difficult to cast, needing 2 white mana on turn 3 when we're in a 3-color deck. The Vantasaurs we can cycle for 1, so we can put them at 1 on the curve. Got a good amount of non-creature stuff for the Pyroceratops to try to go off. Got 12 non-creatures right now. Not sure how well the Necropanther is going to end up working out in here. Seems okay. But another card that's a little bit hard to cast. I guess the hybrid cost makes it pretty easy to mutate, at least, though. Yeah, I'm not sure we're getting all that much by just bringing back a 3-drop. Don't know if we're going to be attacking a lot for cards like the Night Squad Commando here. Actually, I like Necropanther a lot more than Night Squad Commando, because even just bringing back a Farfinder is like a 2-for-1, because we get the 1/1 little Vigilant Body and we grab a land out of our deck. And we have some good 3 mana or less creatures we would want to get back, like Dranistingers and Heedbonders. Probably going to cut this Sleeper Dart. Maybe the Spring Draw Trap even at this point. Because even without Spring Draw Trap, we have Deadweight, Fire Prophecy, Heartless Act, Pacifism, Flame Spill, Blade Banish, and then of course the Ruinous Ultimatum for removal. Yeah, I think I'm good to cut those 2 artifacts. And then we cut 5 more cards. We have to cut so much in here. We could turn white into the main splash, but if we do that, we kind of have to cut Heed Bonder. Because if white is our least represented color, then it's going to be exceptionally hard to hit 2 white mana on turn 3 or 4. No, I think we're just a full 3 color here, probably pretty equal in the 3. I don't think there's one particular color that I want to cut down a lot on because we have powerful cards in each. You know, 2 great removal spells in white, 2 great removal spells in red, 2 great removal spells in black. It is going to be really, really hard to try to cut down on one of them a ton and make that like just a splash. Although theoretically we could like cut down on like all of our black creatures. Throw in a few more red and white cards, and then we're okay with the fact that our black removal doesn't actually get cast on turn 1 or turn 2. That could be a thing. I guess we could do that for pretty much any color. I don't think we can do it for red, though, with 2 2-mana red creatures and 2 3-mana red creatures, and them being some of our better creatures. We gotta cut something here, so if I just cut all that, we only have to cut 1 more card. We could cut the Pyroceratops, be red-white at the core with a splash of black for all of the higher black mana costs. Ruinous Ultimatum also costs triple white, so that's the most restrictive color in its mana cost. So yeah, I think white should be the most represented color in our deck, followed by red, then black. Well, definitely is a bit rough ending up in the 3-color deck on our first draft back in the format. Definitely hitting the ground running here. Because the more colors in your deck, the more difficult it is to build, because you need to make sure that your mana base is as good as possible, and figuring out what colors should be the most and the least represented, what should be the biggest of like a splash color, and what should be one of the cores of your deck is pretty difficult to do both during the draft and during the deck building. But I think this is about where I want this deck. I don't see anything in our sideboard that's like incredibly powerful. I think the best 2 cards that we ended up having in our sideboard are Pyroceratops and Necropanther. With the low creature count, I'm not too concerned without those 2. Offspring's Revenge might actually even just be a cut here at this point. Because, like, we didn't actually end up with any insane enter the battlefield effects to get back, so the fact that it just brings the creatures back as a 1/1 means it does very little here, because we're not aggressive enough to be getting a ton of damage out of those. I guess we get like a 1/1 Farfinder back, and we draw planes when we do that. But most of our creatures just come back as like a 1/1, and that is it. That is all they do. I actually kind of like cutting off Offspring's Revenge here, and throwing back in Pyroceratops maybe. Yeah, this looks pretty solid to me. Of course, Vantasaur being 1 mana if we want to cycle it, 6 mana if we want to play it, so it fits both slots on the curve. That's why it was chilling over at the 1-drops all deck build there. Yeah, I think this is going to be the deck. We'll take a second look at the mana base, make sure that we agree with the auto mana builder here. We have 10 red cards, 8 white cards, and 4 black cards. I still want more white mana than any other color because we need triple white for Ruinous Ultimatum. We need double white on turn 3 for Alert Heatbonder. And all of our red cards only cost 1 red mana. Except for the 7 mana one, that does cost 2 red. But yeah, right now we have 7 red sources and 6 white sources. I want to change that around. Cut 1 mountain, put in 1 more plains. And black sources we have 5. So 7 white, 6 red, 5 black. Just on a scaling down from most to least there. Seems fine to me. Double Farfinder, Evolving Wild should help a lot. Savai Crystal as well. Yeah, I think the mana looks solid here. And I believe this is going to be our very first Ikoria Quick Draft deck back into the format after pretty much a year-long break here since the last Ikoria draft. So let's see how things do here. I am definitely terrified to pair against somebody who ended up in a draft pod where cycling was open. That deck unfortunately became almost completely unbeatable if it's open in your draft pod. But anything else, I'd be happy to just be playing the format here, seeing what people have brewed up with. There are also companions in the format. I don't know if I mentioned that during the draft, but companions were another pretty powerful limited mechanic in this format. If you get basically any companion, they're going to be good, but the less restrictive they are in terms of their companion ability, the better. So companions, of course, are cards that you can have that you just keep beside you outside the game, as long as you meet their deck building requirement. And you can cast them at any time. So if you have a companion in limited, you basically get to start with an 8-card hand, which is pretty absurd. So companions like Lutri and what's the next easiest one to do? Like Gyruda or something were just ridiculous and limited. Because Lutri just says you have to have every non-land card in your deck be a different name. So that's really easy to do in draft, and then just every game you get to start with an 8-card hand. And Gyruda was like every card in your deck has to be an even mana cost. That one was pretty easy to build around. And it looks like we naturally drew all 3 of our colors, so that's pretty nice. Our opponent's on mono white so far. We do have a flame spill to get rid of that perimeter sergeant, but I don't really see it necessary to do that yet because we do have the main serval. We could mutate a Cloud Piercer onto our serval here. That would only be 4 toughness. So it would die if they double block, and I'd only kill one of their creatures. So if I do that, I'm not attacking this turn anyway. I think I'm actually going to grab a Farfinder here, or cast a Farfinder here and grab a land. And now the Farfinder, we can mutate our Cloud Piercer onto that instead. And we get to keep our 1/4 Vigilance and then have a 5/4 Reach Vigilance. Might have been better to grab a red source than a white source there, because then if we make it to 6 mana, we can cast 2 red cards, Flame Spill and Spell Eater Wolverine. But I grabbed the white source for Ruinous Ultimatum because we do need 3 white for that, so that would be the most restrictive cost on the Ruinous Ultimatum. Although, it's also pretty possible we want to just discard this land to Cloud Piercer. And, yeah, I don't think our opponent's going to be attacking in super well. I guess Perimeter Sergeant makes it so this Day Squad Marshal's a lot scarier. They attack with this, and now the Day Squad Marshal attacks in as a 4/3, that attacks in as a 2/1. Although playing a Cloud Piercer just as a blocker here, I think still makes our blocks pretty good. And I am going to discard that Plains, because I think just digging as far as we can into the deck is going to be pretty good here. Try to get towards our Ruinous Ultimatum. We have a Farfinder to grab one of our colors of mana that we need towards it. I think we just want to sit here and try to halt down the game the best we can. And we get to kill 2 of their attackers here if they don't have a combat trick. This will be great, but if they do, it's going to be an issue. Divine Arrow, just a straight up removal spell. We do take 5 damage now, down to 15. Alright, looks like that all resolves, so we do get to kill the 1/1 with our Serval. Keep that around to block something else. Another Perimeter Sergeant. That's definitely not a fun thing to see here. Flame Spill or Pacifism seems like a good play to shut off one of those Sergeants. That'll stop quite a bit of damage. I could play a Farfinder, grab a Plains, and Pacifism here. I could also do it, grab a Mount and Pacifism. That's probably better. We're going to go for the Pacifism because of the fact that it only costs 2 mana, so we get to play a creature and Pacify here. And I can double block the other Perimeter Sergeant. And they only get to kill our Farfinder off of that block. And we can just take the, 5 damage here again, go down to 10. Nice little 1-for-1 trade there. Trading into our smaller creature too. Unless they have another Divine Arrow. That'll do it. Go down to 10 now. If we draw another land, we can double spell since we did grab that mountain, and we did. So now we can... a 3rd Perimeter Sergeant. This is definitely just the scary curve out that these humans decks are capable of. So we Flame Spill 1 Perimeter Sergeant. We have to block the other one here, take 5 again, go down to 5 life. Definitely have to Flame Spill it before combat anyway, so I might as well do it now while they're tapped out. Could also trade with Day Squad Marshal at this point, because that is a bigger attacker by itself. Yeah, if they don't play any more humans, stopping more damage this way. There's another human. It gains them 2 life a turn. That part doesn't actually matter too much. Fire Prophecy is a pretty great draw. Now we can Pyroceratops. We can Fire Prophecy at instant speed, which will make Pyroceratops a 3/4 blocker. I don't think we're going to be drawing the card off Fire Prophecy, although Dark Bargain does do 2 damage to us, but it does let us dig for a Ruinous Ultimatum for a big one-sided Wrath. So I think we still have to keep this Dark Bargain here. Alright, so we're going to make this block, because that'll be blocking with a 3/4, so it won't die. And then I'm going to keep Dark Bargain, or should I? I should probably get rid of it, because what, we're going down to 5 here? But we have blockers for everything that we have. If we cast a Dark Bargain, we get on to 3 life. That is so low. I'm going to keep it. All risk. All risk, all reward here. Come on. Block the Heed Bonder and take... Ooh, Spell Eater Wolverine here. If we play Spell Eater Wolverine, we only have 2 engraved for it. We need 3, so if we Dark Bargain first and hit a land, we're good. Come on, land. Oh yeah, so we keep the land and the Cloud Piercer. Play the land, play the Wolverine. We've got good blocks now. We just cast the Cloud Piercer next turn. We're not going to mutate because we want as many blockers as possible. And now we're all in on drawing that Ruinous Ultimatum. because we are at too low of a life total to risk any attacks here. Dead weight to kill the Spell Eater Wolverine. Another land here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't remember. We do need this for Ruinous. We need another white source. Don't remember if we have any ways to discard like a land for good value. We have the Fire Prophecy, but that's it. And the Fire Prophecy's gone now, so there's no reason not to play this land. And definitely no reason to play Dead Weight here. Our opponent's going to be at a ton of life, for sure. It's going to take a lot of swings to get him. Heartless Act is the draw. Heartless Act kills Alert Heedbonder, so they stop gaining life. And then we can start attacking with Pyroceratops here. They can only hit for 2, even if they removal spell us, so we don't die to a removal spell. Yeah, let's go for it. Would rather them kill the Cloud Piercer than the Pyroceratops, because this will get bigger throughout the game. So we're going to keep the Cloud Piercer back, because I think it's entirely possible they will have 1 removal spell and use it to try to break through, get a couple damage in, put me down to 1. Ooh, there's Ruinous Ultimatum. What does it do here? It kills 2 main servals, and then we get to attack for 11. We have a Dead Weight as a backup, but that's it. I don't think it's necessary right now, but it does make the clock a lot faster. There's definitely an argument for keeping it in case they draw like some kind of scary bomb that'll like super get us. Dead Weight doesn't make us safe to everything. It only makes us safe to another cheap creature. I'm just going to go for it here because this has them dead in 3 attacks. They have 3 draw steps to get out of this, and if they draw a cheap creature, we're living the dream. Oh yeah, so they draw a Perimeter Sergeant. We're super happy to kill that. Now they have 1 draw step to get out of this. And even if they draw a blocker, Pyroceratops has Trample, and there's 2 of these creatures, either which can hit them for lethal. They do have a Kahira, but I think we get there. We do get there. At 3 life, we make it at the end with our Ruinous Ultimatum. Absolutely absurd bomb there. All it did was kill 2 1/4s, but that was all we needed to close that one out with our massive creatures being able to attack it at that point. Definitely very happy to have Pyroceratops in this deck. I'm super happy I threw that back in for this more grindy sort of control deck. It's the kind of card that does become very large by the time you want to be attacking with it. All right, then. Let me grab a drink here between rounds. I was pretty certain we were losing that one. They had a very nice aggressive start with the humans deck. All right, we are going first. We have all the colors of our mana. We've got removal on turn 2 and 3, and we get things started with a Helica Glider into a Pyroceratops. Seems like a solid keep to me. We've definitely got action. We've got all 4 lands that we need now. So we know that we get to Pyroceratops turn 4. I could Fire Prophecy the Humble Naturalist because they're stuck on green right now. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just do that. Get rid of this Plains because I know I get to cast Helica Glider and Flame Spill even if I don't hit another land. We do hit another land. We hit 2 more lands. So we're definitely doing everything we want here. On an empty board, I prefer to give the Helica Glider flying so that we can push in for damage here. Even if they play a blocker, it's unlikely to be a reach blocker, and if it is, we can Flame Spill it. Fertilid, a 2/2, they can use its ability to grab some lands out of their deck. I think we'd like to just drop a Pyroceratops then. get swinging in. Then we'll probably cast a Flame Spill to clear something out of the way so we can send in with both of these. Try to push our aggressive position here. Cloud Piercer onto the Fertilid. Of course, Fertilid does come with +1/+1 counters, so Cloud Piercer is a 7/6, so Flame Spill is not going to kill that. Dark Bargain's a pretty good draw here. I don't really want to spend my Helica Glider and my Flame Spill on killing that Cloud Piercer. When I'm in a deck that has Ruinous Ultimatum and Blade Banish to get rid of it. So I think I would rather just play my Windscarred Crag here and cast a Dark Bargain in their end step. If they didn't attack last turn, they're unlikely to be attacking with this Cloud Piercer. They're just going to hold it to block these things. If they do attack, and I'll just take it. Unless, what is this? Whenever one or more creatures you control with Trample, this doesn't have Trample, does it? It does not. Deals combat damage to a player, create an XX with Trample, where X is the amount of damage dealt. So if this ever hits us, they just make a 6/6. So it's a 6/6, and when it hits us, they get another 6/6, and when those hit us, they get more. That is a terrifying card. Now we need to draw removal for that, rather than Cloud Piercer. That is way more threatening to us. So let's Dark Bargain here. We have Imposing Vantasaur, Cloud Piercer, and Alert Heedbonder. None of these help all that much, although we will have 6 mana next turn. We do have a Swamp in hand with 5 lands on board, so we could cast a Vantasaur. We could cast a Cloud Piercer. I think we just take the biggest creatures that we've got here. Throw the small one into the grave. Gaining a life every turn isn't going to help us if they get a million 6/6s. We do draw into the Ruinous Ultimatum. We do have triple white, double black, and 1 red. We need 1 more land to hit this Ruinous Ultimatum, so I think I'm going to cast Cloud Piercer and cycle the Vantasaur trying to draw land. The fact that we have double Windscarred Crag means if we draw anything other than a swamp, that's the mana we need to do it, because we could do 2 plains and a Windscarred Crag for 3 white, and then Windscarred Crag Mountain for double red. We could do, you know, any mix of those, really. So all we need is another mountain or another plains here. So I do really like cycling the Imposing Vantasaur. It's also worth considering mutating Cloud Piercer just to discard a card and draw another card, but we'd have to discard a Vantasaur that we can cycle anyway, or a Flame Spill. Maybe the option there was to cycle Vantasaur immediately, and if we don't hit the land there, then we can mutate Cloud Piercer and draw another one that way. But I like all the cards in hand here. I think I'm just going to be cycling Vantasaur. And I also like spreading out our blockers as much as possible, so we can just survive till we hit that 1 more land we need for the ultimatum. Go for blood. They're going to have their creatures fight. So they get a counter there, and then they're going to have their 7/6 fight our 3/4. We don't have the mana for Flame Spill here, so there's nothing we can do anyway. If we did, though, we could Flame Spill the Cloud Piercer and finish it off here. That would not be bad. I don't expect an attack here. If they attack both, we'll double block Crasher. If they attack just the one, we'll just block there. So let's cycle. And then we also have our draw step to hit a land. We did hit a swamp, which is the only land that doesn't work for us. But we do have Farfinder. And Farfinder is going to grab us the land we need. So we can't Ruinous Ultimatum immediately, but we can do it next turn. So that's definitely the plan here. We will Farfinder, take action, and grab another Plains. And hold up a Flame Spill here. Definitely not attacking in right now. Don't want to Flame Spill, but it's possible that I'll have to. Not likely. Like, we're probably just going to take everything here. I think I'd rather keep... Maybe we can chump block with Farfinder if nothing else, but we can let the Courtwood Crasher hit us. Oh, no attacks? Alright, I'm super happy with no attacks then. Now we just Ruinous Ultimatum and just go. Ruinous Ultimatum, they have 1 card in hand. We get to keep our board. Blitz of the Thunder Raptors. They kill one of our creatures. Sure. So now they have no cards in hand. We have Cloud Piercer, Helica Glider on against an empty board, I should say. We'll attack all. Play the Evolving Wilds here to thin out our deck. Make sure there's less lands in it at our next draw step. We've got a Flame Spill backup. Feeling pretty good this game. That Ruinous Ultimatum is just going to get us there. I'll just grab a mountain here. Send in, and we are one attack from lethal after this. Unless they have a removal spell here. Flame Spill of their own for our Cloud Piercer would do it. That would slow down the clock a lot. Raking Claws, that just gives something double strike or they cycle it, so there's the cycle. Exuberant Wolf Bear, so they have a 4/4, so they could block Cloud Piercer with that, but with no other cards in hand, we can Flame Spill that, and that is dead on board. And there's the concession from our opponent, putting us at 2-0, although we have only won the games in which we've drawn Ruinous Ultimatum. We just happen to draw Ruinous Ultimatum in every game. The card is definitely pretty absurd, so I don't know how earned the victories were, but 2-0 thus far. Alright, so we have an Evolving Wilds to sacrifice for a mountain here. Then we can cast everything. I guess we don't have a 4th land for Pyroceratops yet, but we've definitely got time to get there. Hand seems super solid to me. We will keep this one and get started with round 3. The Almighty Brushwag, the strongest card in the format. It actually is, like, it's solid, but it is adorable. Little 1/1s with trample. This one has its own ability to buff itself up and chip in for some extra damage that way. We have drawn our 3rd color here. That is always beautiful. Got 1 green mana up. I think we're safe to attack into 1 green mana. Yep, we get that damage in. Let's drop our Spell Eater Wolverine, curve out with our biggest creatures each turn, probably dropping Pyroceratops turn 4 as well. We're playing against green and blue, mutating a Migratory Greathorn onto the Brushwag here, grabbing another land. We can Heartless Act that to get it out of the way. We could cast Heartless Act and Main Serval here, just attack for 5, put them down to 3. I'm not 3, 13. That seems solid, but I also like playing Pyroceratops before we play any instance so that the Ceratops gets counters, but then we don't get to attack in at all this turn. Yeah, I think we're the beat down right now. Let's blow up that Greathorn and slam in. Proud Wild Wander. 4/3, so we can still attack in with our 3/2. Yeah, I think we'll do that. We'll offer the trade there. Spell Eater Wolverine's a long way from having double strike, so I'm fine with this trade. Gets that out of the way so our other creatures might be able to attack in. Lead the Stampede, so they look at the top 5, any creatures there they get to reveal and put into their hand. They've drawn 3 off of that, and we are about to be in a world of hurt. Honey Mammoth, of course, a 6/6 that gains 4, and then Kogla the Titan Ape, a 7/6 that kills one of our creatures when it comes in with its fight ability, and does more. And Auspicious Starix, the probably best mutate card in the set, has a mutate ability where you get to exile until you hit X permanents from the top of your library, and then you get to play those permanents just for free. So really good card there. We are super dead to those massive creatures. So our only way to win is either to bash them in for lethal somehow, but that's not a plan that's ever going to work out, because they're gaining 4 life and playing a 6/6. They're playing a 7/6 that kills one of our creature. Yeah, that's never going to work out, so I think we just have to keep all of our creatures and be on the same plan as we've been on every game, which is fingers crossed for Ruinous Ultimatum. The Lead the Stampede really turned things around here. Those were some terrifying cards for them to reveal. Before they revealed those cards, I felt like we had a good position to try to just keep bashing in, get them down from that 13 down to 0 potentially, but Lead the Stampede changed that real fast. Those are some pretty great reveals there. The fact that Kogla has flying because of the Wingspan Mentor makes me kind of want to just cycle this Vantisar, honestly, to potentially draw into Ruinous Ultimatum, because we're taking 7 a turn. We're dead in 2 turns to just Kogla the Titanate by itself. So I think we have to cycle it. Hope to draw Ruinous Ultimatum. Oh, wow, and they can just use Kogla's ability to return the Wingspan Mentor to hand to give flying to the other cards. Seems like a pretty good combo. Hoping that they play more creatures here. Oh, that's immediate lethal. That's immediate lethal because that's 13 right there. Ooh, Blade Banish. No longer is it immediate lethal, because now we get to exile Kogla. Take 6. Bam, down to 7. We'll take 2 more hits to kill us now. Actually, no, it only takes 1 more hit because the Wingspan Mentor does put a +1/+1 counter. So we need to draw a removal spell or Ruinous Ultimatum right now, so we got to cycle Vantisar right now. Flame Spill? If we Flame Spill the Wingspan Mentor, we can take 6 and go to 1, and we have 1 more draw step if we kill it before they can spend the mana to put the +1/+1 counter on the Starix. So we'll do that. Attack all here. Well, that makes me concerned they just have a pump spell and it doesn't matter. Yeah, that's the best block we have. Alright, our only choice here. Our only chance here. Ruinous Ultimatum off the top. I would say 1 time, but this would be 3rd time. Here we go. Draw. Alright, well, it was not meant to be in every game. Unfortunately, it's not often you're the luckiest player in the universe and you get to draw Ruinous Ultimatum every game. However, it does look like, even with that game, every single game where we draw Ruinous Ultimatum, we're having a good time. In that one, I don't know if we would have won if we would have drawn Ruinous Ultimatum, but we would have killed like a million creatures, so that would have been really solid. But they still had 2 cards in hand. If they had just any 1 more creature in their hand, they could still very well find a way to kill us pretty easily. So that one, I think we probably would have lost either way. Alright, so we're heading into round 4 now. We're 2-1. Not bad. Don't love this start because we don't have any red mana immediately, but we only need 1 more land to have Farfinder and Savai Crystal, and those will get us all the mana we need in the correct colors as well. So I'll keep this. Any land makes this whole hand active. It just does it slowly. The 3rd land plays Farfinder, which gives us the 4th land. Then we play Savai Crystal, and that's the 5th mana there, so we can play Cloud Piercer even without mutating it. We could even just cycle Adrana Stinger to make sure we hit a 3rd mana here, but I don't want to do that till I hit my draw step. And I'd rather cycle the Vantisar first. We do hit the 3rd land. I think because of that, I'm not going to cycle the Adrana Stinger. We're just going to play the 3rd land and Farfinder for a mountain next turn. Although if we played the Crystal instead, we could potentially play a Cloud Piercer this turn. It actually probably would have been better. Probably should have cast Savai Crystal. That way this turn I could just play the planes, and then I have 5 mana Cloud Piercer immediately. But I can still Cloud Piercer, I just have to put it on my Farfinder and discard the planes instead. Does still seem like the best thing I can do. Draw Dark Bargain, not bad at all. 5/4 Vigilance Reach seems pretty good here. Our opponents on blue and black, they had an easy prey, but we didn't have any creatures that small for them to kill with it. So they did, of course, cycle that. Don't know what else they have. We have drawn into the Ruinous Ultimatum, which is great. We do have Savai Crystal, Dark Bargain to draw into more mana. So we'll probably be casting that this game. The question is whether or not it'll be countered at that point since they are on blue. Crustacean, a 1/6 Flash Crab. I am going to kill that before they can declare blocks with a Heartless Act because it does chip in for 5 more damage by doing that. So, like, destroy a creature and deal 5 to your opponent's a pretty good deal for only 2 mana when you're on the aggressive. So I will take that deal. And because we did that, we don't have the mana for the Savai Crystal, so I'll play the Drana Stinger instead. If they didn't play a blocker there, I would have played Savai Crystal and then the Stinger, because we could play the Crystal for 3 and then have 2 mana up afterwards, but I did want to make sure to get that 5 more damage in, put them down to 10 here. They are very low. And a dead weight for the Drana Stinger, but it looks like Cloud Piercer's still going to hit him here. Now we have Flame Spill as well, another way to break through that last bit of damage. Put him down to 5 now. I think I'm just going to pass so that I can hold up Flame Spill. I can Flame Spill something in their end step. If I don't have to Flame Spill here, or there's something too big to Flame Spill, like the Wingfold Terran, I can instead just Dark Bargain to draw some cards. Pacifism's good, but that has Hexproof, unfortunately. Helica Glider's good because we can give Helica Glider flying chip in for the last bit of damage. And it seems pretty great. I think Helica Glider and Pacifism are the draws of choice here. And we did draw land, so we can also play our Crystal and our Helica Glider. And we're only 1 mana away from a Ruinous Ultimatum now, which will clear out all of those hexproof blockers. The flying blocker as well, which is important to do. Blade Banish, exile with power 4 or greater, so that won't kill the Wingfold Terran. But a Deadweight plus a Flame Spill will kill it, or a single Pacifism. We'll go with the single Pacifism there. Chip in with flying. Pass turn. Frostlinks, tap something down, they can keep it tapped. Flame Spill does 2 damage to them here by killing a Frostlinks, which is pretty good. Ooh, Grim Dancer could have lifelink though, so I think I'd rather kill that and do 1 damage to them. They chose lifelink Menace. Yeah, because they're going to try to gain life off of that. Yeah, I'm definitely going to Flame Spill that one. And there's the Ruinous Ultimatum mana. That might just close this one out. Looks like no counterspell, so I believe that it does. And that is 3-in-1 for basically Ruinous Ultimatum deck. That is our biggest win condition by far. Just a Ruinous Ultimatum with some big dork on the board to slap them a few more times. As always, if you don't care about spoilers, there are links in the description below to the start of each round of Magic coming up, so you can skip past the little bit of downtime between rounds as I take a nice sip and make sure I don't completely demolish my voice. Alright, so round 5. 3-1. Tons of removal in this hand with a Spell Eater Wolverine that might actually have Double Strike this game. This might be the first Spell Eater Wolverine that gets to Double Strike. We have great mana here as well. I'm going to go ahead and keep this. I like our opponent's got the Silver Quill avatar and the Witherbloom sleeves. Green, black, white over there. We'll see what their actual deck colors are, though. Because, of course, I always use my lore hold avatars lately. But frequently not playing lore hold, obviously. Although I guess I do end up in red and white pretty frequently. They are my favorite colors lately. So we're playing against green and blue. I can dump out our Spell Eater Wolverine, or I can dump out a Savai Crystal. Not really ramping into anything here, so we might as well get that Wolverine out, start slapping our opponent if they play any creatures. We definitely have the removal for them. So we're certainly hitting for 3 a turn for a little while here. Charge of the Forever Beast. That's just a removal spell. Yep. We do have Alert Heed Bonder, which is nice. Yep, again, I think I'm just going to get that out here. Next turn I can play Savai Crystal and Fire Prophecy all in one turn, even if I don't draw into a land. That way I can kill Bristling Boar with that and get my mana out for a future turn. And I'm just going to do that here. Although I could wait on the Fire Prophecy so I can like get rid of a land to draw something else. I guess I could have gotten rid of the Crystal to draw something else, but the Crystal's been useful every game that we've won because we've needed to cast Ruinous Ultimatum in every game. I'm actually just going to hold off here. I guess it has 4 power, so we don't block well anyway. Yeah, I'm going to Flame Spill that, actually. Hopefully they have another 3 toughness creature and we can draw a card off the Fire Prophecy later. There's no way I'm getting rid of Blade Banish against a green deck, though, because we need something to get rid of, like, a really big creature. That is a 2/4, so we'll just stare at each other now. That seems fair. Yeah, if we Fire Prophesied first, we could actually still attack past that, but at least they can't attack into me either. So I can just sit here gaining life. That is kind of what our deck wants to do, just sit here and wait for a Ruinous Ultimatum to change things. So, as long as we can just sit here, I think it's good for us. Ooh, Cloud Piercer, 5/4 reach, so that's the Terran can't attack in. Do I want to mutate that onto anything? I don't think so. Because even if I put a 5/4 Vigilant reach out, it's not attacking in well because they have a 3/6. Yeah, I'd rather spread my creatures out wide here because we're also not getting value off of the discard to draw a card right now. Because our cards in hand are good, we don't want to discard these to draw anything else. They're already very solid. Although Fire Prophecy not panning out super well. I still like having it for when our opponent does draw another smaller creature. If they attack with Wingfold Terran here, we're pretty good to just take it. Because we're at 25. I am definitely... Yeah, I was going to say I'm definitely going to block the Moss Coat, though. Because if they end up just killing our 2/4, we're pretty happy with that exchange, because that means they don't have that pump spell that could have killed Cloud Piercer if we tried to block Terran with Cloud Piercer. So this makes it more likely that a block on Wingfold Terran actually resolves later, because now they don't have a fully grown to do there if they went for some big Alpha Strike later on that would kill our Cloud Piercer. So I'm actually pretty fine with that. And a Traneth Stinger doesn't attack in well on this board, neither does it block well, so I kind of want to just discard that. Just cycle that here. Helica Glider. We can get a flyer down. Or a first striker, neither of which help me all that much. If I play a flyer, then whenever Wingfold Terran attacks me, we can attack back at least. It's not terrible. Let's get it out there. Now we do threaten a bit of a crackback whenever they attack. I guess we already were threatening that. Well, does get convoluted. That's definitely not the end of the world. Because again, it was only threatening like 2 damage in retaliation. And now they can't convolute our Ruinous Ultimatum if we do draw into that. They have 2 cards in hand here. Right now we're kind of just staring each other down, because if they do attack with the Wingfold Terran, we attack with the Cloud Piercer. Awkwardly, the Blade Banish has not turned out well, all their creatures having 3 power, not 4. So Blade Banish not as good of a keep as I had expected it to be. Ooh, Dark Bargain's a great draw. We're just going to keep sitting here. Always happy to sit here when you've got big bombs in your deck. Just gives us the time to draw into those. And we have some pretty good draw spells as well. Dark Bargain plus Fire Prophecy are both going to dig a little bit. 2 into our hand here. We'll grab Farfinder Windscarred Crag, I suppose. I could Fire Prophecy to kill Trumpeting Gnar and draw another card instead of Windscarred Crag. It's not awful, because it stops them from mutating with that later and getting a bunch of 3/3s. They could have like another combat trick here, but then we're again getting that out of the way so they can't make a big attack with Wingfold Terran and get our Cloud Piercer out. So that's fine too, if that happens. Pyroceratops is a draw. Pretty good card there. We have Farfinder to play, but that would shuffle our library, so Windscarred Crag would come back into it somewhere that isn't on bottom, so it doesn't actually thin our deck to cast a Farfinder now, but it does draw us another land still, so it's probably still worth it. Yeah, I could see Farfinder, Pyroceratops here, cast Farfinder first. In case they have like another Convolute, we'll cast this when we only have 3 mana up. Maybe they'll Convolute it. Looks like a no. Grab a Swamp here, I guess. Doesn't really matter at this point because we have multiple multicolored lands, mana sources. We've got all the mana we need for anything. There's the Ruinous Ultimatum. We'll see if they've got the counterspell. If they don't, we sort of win on the spot. Right? 1, 2, 3, 8, 9 plus 6, 15. We don't win on the spot, but we do 15. It is pretty big. Again, only killing 2 things, but getting this big attack in is still phenomenal. And there's the concession from our opponent. Definitely been a strange draft. When the deck works, it works. The game plan is definitely just playing big blockers, trying to sit there and control the game just enough to where we're not getting beaten down, so that we can just sit there and wait to draw Ruinous Ultimatum. And then, as I said during the draft, it's the kind of card it's kind of hard to resolve because it costs so much mana, and it's pretty restrictive in terms of its mana cost, but if you cast the thing, it's hard not to win. So we are on the play here. We have all 3 colors. We have Dead Weight and Heartless Act to kill early creatures. We have Dark Bargain later to draw into stuff. I like this hand quite a bit. It's got great mana. Digs through our deck pretty well. which is great with Spell Eater Wolverine as well, for that to potentially have double strike this game. We're going to be playing a Heartless Act and a Dark Bargain early. That's 2 instants in the graveyard, and Dark Bargain does mill us 1 card, so we might even throw an instant or sorcery into grave with that. Evolving Wilds thins out our deck a little bit, so we can draw more action. We'll see what our opponent's on here. They are on a 7-card hand right now, choosing whether to mulligan. Of course, this is round 6 now, 4-1, to start off the Ikoria quick drafts. Has been a little while since I made a video. It's been almost a week, probably the biggest downtime I've ever had this year. Just got a little Magicked out. I think I was playing definitely too much lately. Of course, as I've said before, Magic is my primary hobby, so I do spend a lot of time on it, but it is still just my hobby, so sometimes it does go to the wayside, especially sometimes when I just play too much. Sometimes it can wear on me a little bit, and I can start enjoying it a little less, then I gotta take a little break. So it happens, but we're back in it now. One of the big things that always gets me to come back to Magic is whenever there's like a big variety of draft formats to play again. So just a draft format that I haven't played in a while. I think the dullest time to me is like 2 or 3 weeks after a set releases, because during that time frame, Wizards is always wanting to promote that set, so there's just no other draft formats available. So playing like absolutely nothing but Strixhaven for a few weeks, as nice as the format is, can wear on me a little bit. I'm not like a Ben Stark level player that just absolutely loves grinding out one format and really perfecting it. I love the variety that is available in draft. Ooh, I like all these cards, but I'll just take the instants and sorceries here. Thank you. All right. So our opponent did slow us down a good bit with that Gust of Wind. Now we have 5 mana, so we could cast Spell Eater Wolverine, and that's about it, because we only have 1 red source, so we can't hold up a Fire Prophecy. I guess we can hold up a Heartless Act just in case, or we can play a Farfinder to get ready for a Ruinous Ultimatum, but they have nothing on board, so there's no reason to right now. We don't want a Ruinous Ultimatum until they're down to only a couple cards in hand. I think we Spell Eater Wolverine, hold up Heartless Act. That just seems like definitely the simplest option here. We'll probably just keep playing Spell Eater Wolverines if they don't put something impressive on this board, and if they put something really impressive on, hopefully we can Heartless Act it, and then just keep playing Spell Eater Wolverines to attack anyway. Patasia Tiger, that is a 3/4. I think that's impressive enough to Heartless Act here. Later on, of course, we can Ruinous Ultimatum if they play bigger, scarier things. But for now, I just want to get in for a lot. And I can actually Farfinder and Spell Eater Wolverine here, right? Yes, I can. I have not played a land this turn, so we'll grab a red. And then hopefully Fire Prophecy Deadweight can take something else down, and that will activate both of the Spell Eater Wolverines double strike. That could be absolutely massive next turn. That'd be 12 damage, because they would each do 6 if they have double strike. Gyruda, Doom of Deaths, 6/6, mill themselves a bunch, get back an even card. I forgot, that's one of the companions that's also just really good to main deck here, so we can kill one of those with Fire Prophecy. I guess only the small one. We could also just Ruinous Ultimatum him now and hit him for 13. That's pretty massive. No, that's got to be the play. Now if we draw any other cycling card, Drannith Stinger finishes them off. If they don't play 3 creatures here, they're dead. If they play creatures that are small enough to die to a Deadweight or a Fire Prophecy, they're dead. Yeah, that would be a hard one to come back from. That will set us up to 5-1 for the return to Ikoria draft. Pretty happy about that. This deck, I guess it's been a really long time since I played this format, so don't really know how to evaluate the kind of decks in this format anymore at this point. This deck looked super weird to me and pretty jankety. But the general just card value there, the card power is there. We've got like a really efficient removal, and the big blocker kind of creatures to stall things out are good enough to survive till the Ruinous Ultimatum, and obviously, as we've seen, that is consistently just winning the game. We've gotten pretty lucky, though. As you can see by the fact that we've had 5 wins, we have drawn Ruinous Ultimatum in 5 games. This might be the first hand I mulligan. The only thing we can know that we can do with this hand is Heartless Act. Gotta wait for a white source for anything else, and even if we hit a white source, we're not doing much. Kind of just using removal. Yeah, I'm gonna mulligan that one. I think this I'll keep and get rid of Spell Eater Wolverine. We've obviously seen we're always all in on Ultimatum. Keeping a 7-mana card in your opener is a little rough, though. But Ruinous Ultimatum, like, if we put it on bottom, we're not going to win the game, because then we're not going to draw it all game. Unless we draw into a Farfinder or Evolving Wilds, those do shuffle our library, I suppose. Yeah, I could actually see throwing Ruinous Ultimatum on bottom, because we have 3 shuffle effects in the deck. This gives us something that we're like guaranteed actively playing towards, though. Like, we're always playing towards Ruinous Ultimatum in this deck, but if it's in your hand, like, you can very much just like know you're playing towards it instead of just hoping. Can also just get rid of the Vantasar and not cycle it. Yeah. That seems fair. Just get rid of the Vantasar. I'm so like caught up on like, oh, I want to cycle that Vantasar turn 1, then I'm like, well, what if we just get rid of it and we know we have the Ruinous Ultimatum and we also have a 3-mana creature turn 3? That could be good too. The fact that we're playing towards an Ultimatum makes me kind of want to just cycle a Stinger and try to turn that into a land rather than play a 2/2 here. Although that might be playing too aggressively into the Ultimatum. But if they play a 0/5 on turn 2 here, Drana Stinger's not going to be doing much damage on the board. Just going to keep attacking into an 0/5 and getting nothing done. So that's not awful. Worked out well for us, at least. We do have all 3 colors now. I'm not going to Heartless Act the turtle. Let's just get our Wolverine down. There's a Frost Lynx to slow us down. Another Drannith Stinger here. I'm going to cycle that, although I could play it as a blocker for Frost Lynx, but they'll definitely just attack in. We make a trade there. I can also just deadweight the Frost Lynx if I really need to. A cycle. Do want to hit lands. Alert Heedbonder. Well, that would have made me want to keep that white mana up. I chose to cycle off the white mana because then I could have 1 white, 1 red, 1 black, so whatever I cast, it'd be pretty likely that I could cast it, but drawing the double white card, obviously, is not going to work well when we tapped that 1 white, so maybe it would have been better for the Swamp or Mountain. In hindsight, it clearly would have been. Yeah, I'm just going to pass here. I don't want to spend a removal spell when I'm working towards a Wrath unless I absolutely have to, so we can just drop a Heedbonder as a 2/4 to block that Frost Lynx. Tigorilla does enter the battlefield with a counter on it, so we can't destroy it in response to the trigger because it just comes with the counter. So Tigorilla is going to be a big old scary menace creature. And we're just going to have to accept that into our face with its damage. 5 mana now, so only 2 mana away from Ruinous Ultimatum, although that can take a while. Not going to attack in into the 0/5, it won't accomplish anything. We don't have any instants or sorceries engraved to give double strike to the Wolverine. I like the sound effect on the Tranquil Cove there. Nice little seagulls and stuff. It has been so long since I've like seen or heard a seagull IRL because I live like right in the center of the mainland of the United States, so very very far from actual like oceans. But I always do like seagulls and oceans and stuff because it reminds me of like Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. The nerdiest reason to enjoy those kinds of sounds. But wingles are pretty cool. Well, we could double block here, which could end pretty poorly. But maybe they just want to trade with our Wolverine or our Heatbonder. I don't know what this is going to be here. I think I can afford to take 4, go down to 15. Yeah, we have the emergency button for like another big creature if they play another one, so if they just hit us for 4 a turn, we've got a good amount of time to make it to 7 mana. Gust of Wind to bounce one of these, draw a card. Alright, that's not awesome, but I guess it gives us something to do next turn because we don't have any proactive cards in our hand. Alright, there we go. 6 mana. All we need is one more red source to get to the Ruinous Ultimatum. Play the Spell Eater Wolverine. We are going to gain a life here. No reason to deadweight the Frostlings because it's not attacking us anyway since we have the 2/4 out. So we'll just keep the removal. And we're looking at the Wolverine there. They might have another removal spell. Would not be ideal. Dreamtail Heron, that's not great either. If I destroy that in response to the Mutate, the Heron still comes out because of the way that Mutate works, so you can't 2-for-1 your opponent off of their Mutate stuff like you can do when they try to put an aura on something. So I think I just let them draw the card off of it and I just kill it afterwards. Because if I Heartless Act in response, I'm just killing a turtle and stopping them from drawing 1 card. Although I am still just 1 mana away from the Ruinous Ultimatum to kill the everything, so I can go down to 13 here. Yeah, we'll do that. Down to 13. Cloud Piercer's the draw. Perfect. It's a blocker for the Dreamtail Herons. Let's just put that out there. It's also a nice 5-power threat for after we blow everything up. I guess I'm misremembering the amount of multicolored that was going on in this format because we are playing against a lot of 3-color decks today as well. But it could just be that it's been so long since the format has come out that the meta has shifted again. I was kind of trying to remember the format based on what the late game meta of the format was because that's when people had the most like experience with the format. I felt like that was a lot of 2-color. Well, we're taking 1,000,000 here, so we kind of need the red source immediately now. The Archipelagor being a absolutely horrible card for them to drop on us here, tapping down our best blockers and drawing a card. They can do it again if they mutate again. Yeah, I think we have to Heartless Act that now and hold up a Blade Banish. I'm going to Heartless Act it now so they can't mutate it again and try to get more triggers off. They're also as close to tapped out as they're gonna be right now. Do they have the 1 mana First Strike pump spell? That would be the biggest blowout. I think there is a 1 mana spell that gives like a First Strike counter to a creature. but I don't recall exactly. Alright, so we just hold on to Blade Banish to kill the Tigorilla. If we cast Deadweight, we only have 3 mana up. That's not enough to banish. So, I guess we do get a free attack with the Heed Bonder since it's got Vigilance. And they only have 1 mana up, so we know they can't have a Divine Arrow or anything here. So we're at 4, we banish the Tigorilla. Stay at 4 life. Could have been worth it to banish it during our turn in case they had like a hexproof thing. But I'm not worried about them trying to do any big like mutate stacks onto that one at least. So we go block there. Exile the Tigorilla, take 1. Holding on the Blade Banish does potentially get them to do like a big swing like this where we could get a nice 2-for-1 off of it, killing the Frostlings for basically free here. Heightened Reflexes, so they do 2 damage to us. Alright, and that is a first strike counter. So they had that this turn. Don't know if they had it last turn then. So now we play Pyroceratops. We can deadweight the little first striker, but we also just have a million blockers now, so I don't think we need to. It doesn't gain us any more life to deadweight something. I think we just Pyroceratops. I don't actually really want to attack with the Heed Bonder anymore in case they have Divine Arrow, because I think the life gain's pretty important. I think I attack with Cloud Piercer here, because it hits them for 5 or just kills their 1/1. If they Divine Arrow Cloud Piercer, I don't think that's as bad as them Divine Arrowing our life gainer. Maybe we attack with both, and they're more likely to Divine Arrow the 5/4 than the 2/4. Yeah, let's set in both here. Alright, no Divine Arrow. So our creatures are safe. For now. Savai Crystal gives us the Ruinous Ultimatum mana that we need, but we don't need the Ultimatum anymore. They just have a couple 1/1s out. But we do get counters on Pyroceratops this way, so it turns into an even bigger threat. I think we still hold on to the Deadweight. We probably just make the same attack we did last turn. And that puts them down to 6. Gain a life, go to 4. Alright, I guess they were just drawing dead at the end there, so we got pretty lucky there again. They got pretty flooded out at the end, I think. But that was another really scary game. Our opponent had a lot of good card draw off of the mutate stuff they were doing. And just some nice mutate shenanigans in general. So that does put us to 6 wins and 1 loss, no matter what happens now. We are getting 850 gems out of this. Of course, it does cost 750 gems to play in a quick draft event. So I am always happy to make my entry fee back. My goal when drafting is just to be able to play as much because I love the format. So just playing as much drafts as much as possible is what I like to do. So I'd like to get as close to like going infinite, quote unquote, as possible. Trying to just get my gem rewards back so they can throw all the gems back into playing another draft. And for that reason, the draft challenges coming up next week seem pretty interesting to me. So I will be trying out a couple of those. We'll see how that does. But they are doing Strixhaven draft challenges next week. And that's going to be like a higher entry fee draft, like 20,000 gold, something like that. But for every win you get in the draft, you get a draft token so you can go play another draft. So, I don't know, seems interesting to me. Because if you do decent in those, if you win 3 or 4 games, then you get like 3 or 4 more drafts out of it. So that seems pretty cool. We'll have to try those out a little bit. Anyways, we are into potentially the final round here if we win this one. We've got Windscarred Crag Swamp Plains. Great mana here. Farfinder as well. Vantasar to cycle away to draw something else, or we can just wait and cast it as a 3/6 later. Most games we have ended up just cycling the Vantasar, but maybe eventually we'll cast it. We'll see. We're playing against a white-blue deck. They start with a Savai Sabertooth, so I do need to get some blockers out fast. Farfinder's going to be a great blocker for that, though. We do have 4 mana already. Farfinder finds us the 5th mana, so we're only 1 mana away from being able to cast the Vantasar. in terms of mana in hand. I think I will hold on to the Vantasaur this time around. Hopefully a 3/6 blocker is good against the kind of deck that's running 3/1s for 2. Farfinder should be a solid blocker, though, if they don't have the turn 2 pacifism to shut it down. Checkpoint Officer, well, that'll shut down the Farfinder. Can tap it down for 2 mana. Ooh, Flame spills the draw so we can kill one of their creatures. That's pretty great. But I think I will start things out with the Farfinder. That'll force them to, if nothing else, spend all their mana just tapping that down. And at best it'll just trade with the Sabertooth. Alright, looks like they don't have much action here. They are waiting for more lands. So we should have some time to set things up here. Just keep playing more blockers, I guess. Play a Pyroceratops here. Take a little bit of damage from the Sabertooth, but Pyroceratops can get pretty big pretty quick, and then we're going to have a 3/6 Vigilance on turn 6. Hopefully just play bigger creatures than our opponent's playing. Both of their creatures so far are nice aggressive cards for cheap. Ooh, Vulpikeet's terrifying. Yeah, Vulpikeet, a 3/4 flying, so they just get in there in the sky. I think we're going to go ahead and Flame Spill that. I would rather Flame Spill it than Pacify it, because Pacifism can hit more things. Yep, and I can only cast one thing here. I'm just going to Flame Spill it immediately. We're at 12, so I want to just stop as much damage as possible. Send in that Pyroceratops while we can. Of course, by sending that in, we might take 1 more damage this turn, because now they could attack us with the Checkpoint Officer, and we can't block well with a Farfinder. It's only a 1/1, but I can just go to 11 here. Stopping 1 damage isn't a super high priority here, but stopping like 3+ damage is pretty important. Alright, just past turn. They are stuck on mana still, it looks like. As much as I'd love to gain a life off this land, probably better to just drop down a Vantasaur. So we'll go ahead and send an attack in with everybody and see what they've got. Mystic Subdual to make our Pyroceratops a 1/4 with no abilities. Well, still chips in for 1 damage here, so send it in. Then we only have 1 instant on our grave for Wolverine, so Wolverine's just a 3/2 with no other abilities, so Vantasaur definitely better. Opponent has 4 mana now. They're definitely getting out of the mana screw they started off with. Savai Sabertooth. Alright, not super great at this point, but I don't attack in as well anymore unless I pacify that. I think I still attack in well with the Vantasaur, but they tap that down. So they tap down Vantasaur, then we just attack with Pyroceratops. And then if they want to attack me with Sabertooth, they have to tap down the Farfinder to do that. So I think we do attack in here. If they want to attack with their Sabertooth, they have to tap down our Farfinder, and then by tapping down Farfinder, they don't get to tap down Vantasaur on their next turn. Like now we actually are kind of racing well, because we do have 4 creatures on the board. Majestic Auricorn to give it Vigilance and gain 4 life. Okay, so now they just do attack with a big old 4/4 Vigilance here. Well, we take that and then we pacify it, rather than trade with it here. Because it's a 2-for-1 trade, so it's not good for me. Alright, they don't even take the trade anyway. Yep, let's just pacify that. We get to slam in with everybody else here. No blocks on the Pyroceratops is nice. Just an extra point of damage we may not have been able to get in. Capture Sphere on the Wolverine, so if that gets double strike, then that'll be sad, because it would have been doing a lot of damage, but as it stands. It's equal damage that would have been stopped by shutting down the Vantasar, so I'm fine with that. They're down to 7 now. Just keep dropping our lands out. 5 mana for our opponent now. And a Helica Glider is the play. Gonna play it as a flyer so they can start chipping back in at me. And a Gust of Wind on our opposing Vantasar. Their Helica Glider only hits us for 2 a turn, so I don't think I want to cycle our Vantasar. Although, we're not really racing them well anymore. See what we draw into here. Cloud Piercer? If we draw into Cloud Piercer, I think I just throw that onto Farfinder to discard one of these lands to draw a card. Discard the Swamp. Draw into another Farfinder. That's pretty good. That thins out the deck again. Now we have a 5/4 reach. So anytime that they want... Ooh, this puts them to 2? Anytime that they want to hit us for 2 with Helica Glider, they have to use Checkpoint Officer during their turn to tap down Cloud Piercer. So I think we are still on the aggressive then, and because they're at 2 life, Vantasar hitting them would kill them, so I kind of want to play it here. But also, if we draw into a Drannith Stinger, we could cycle Vantasar and do a damage to them without having to hit them. I think we just play it here. Just get more creatures out. Breakthrough for our final 2 damage. Yeah, we'll play to what we have currently then, rather than what we might draw later. Mystic Subdual does turn off our reach, but attacking here would be very aggressive, being at 2 life against 12, so I think we're still okay in terms of preserving our life total. And they're just going to scoop them up now, because we do have 3 attackers against their 2 blockers, so if the Mystic Subdual was all they had, then if we attack in there, they would have to chump block both of our 3 power creatures and just lose their whole board. I guess they have the mana to tap down one of them, but they tap down one, chump block the other, take 1, and then they die the next turn. So they definitely did not have great blocks there if they didn't have good cards in hand, and judging by the concession, I suppose they did not. So that is going to end today's draft, the quick draft of Ikoria, Lair of Behemoths, my first draft of this format in a long time, and definitely not a format I got particularly into or drafted a ton of. But yeah, that was fun. That was really interesting too. We didn't run up against a single cycling deck, so maybe within the quick draft format where you're drafting it against bots, they kind of tried to purge that strategy out as well as they could and just have the bots draft those cards incredibly highly so that you actually get to play around with the variety of formats and mechanics, archetypes and mechanics available in the format. A lot of mutate stuff going on. Nice variety of decks from our opponents. Pretty fun draft overall, and a really nice record to start off these quick drafts. So I will definitely be doing some more of these as often as I can for the next week. And of course, next week, that is when the Strixhaven draft challenges will start. So I'll probably do a couple of those. But until then, let's go ahead and open these packs at the end of the video if you want to see what I get here. I don't think that I 100% completed Ikoria because I just didn't draft it that much, so we'll actually get some rares instead of gems. Mythos of Brokos being the first one, a nice little recursion spell grabbing a couple permanents from your grave to your hand, and if you're playing green, blue, and black, this works as a tutor as well, searching for whatever card you want to put into your graveyard and then put into your hand. And the final pack is a mythic rare wild card. I mean, I'll take it. That's about as good as you can get. A wild card is always going to be better than a regular rare, even if it is a little less interesting. And for our random level up pack from the Mastery Tree, we get a Magma Opus in Strixhaven. Super fun card, really fun to draft around in Prismari. But Also pretty absurd. Maybe not so fun to play against because of how how good it is if you manage to resolve that spell. But Ruinous Ultimatum, pretty similar feel there. At least in that final game, we won a game without casting a Ruinous Ultimatum, just to prove our deck's power level there at the end. Our opponent also did get mana screwed a bit at the start, did not curve out particularly well, which worked very well to our benefit because it allowed us to play our large creatures that could really shut off all of their cheap creatures and just put pressure on them by being the largest creatures on board by far. So anyways, that is going to end today's video. If you enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff that lets the YouTube algorithm know that you're interested in the content and you want to see more. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.